Hey guys, today on JD Cars, we'll be straight piping this Audi Q5 with a set of QTP dual exhaust cutouts. So this is my friend Jared's Audi Q5. It's an S-Line, very clean car. It's got some nice tint on there. We have the 3.2 liter 6-cylinder engine, so this should sound pretty damn good. I'm excited to work on this project. I do want to note that this won't be a terribly in-depth install tutorial because I've already made a 25-minute video going into a great amount of depth about the install of these QTP cutouts on my BMW 335 over here. As you can see, I have a QTP cutout installed right here in front of the muffler. It sounds really good. If you haven't seen that video already, be sure to check it out. And also be sure to check it out if you're looking for a very in-depth step-by-step installation tutorial, because today I'll mostly just be vlogging the process of working on Jared's car here. But this is definitely still gonna be a really exciting video, so stay tuned. I'm gonna get this in the garage and we'll get working. All right, car's up on the lift. I'll give you a quick look here of what I got from QuickTime Performance. And again, if you want a more in-depth explanation of all these parts and your options for installing cutouts on a vehicle, be sure to check out my previous QTP electric cutout video that I did on my BMW. But nonetheless, check out what we got here. This has our 2 electric exhaust valves. Everything is very well packaged, as you can see. So we have our wiring harness, which is a dual wiring harness setup. And underneath we have the valves themselves. These are really beautifully made machined aluminum exhaust valves. They're very solid. The motor is very substantial compared to other cutouts on the market, and these cutouts are really made to last. They have watertight seals on either end of the motor here, as you can see. These connections here are waterproofed with watertight seals, and the construction overall is just far superior to anything else on the market. So if you're interested in installing cutouts on your car, I highly recommend you check out QuickTime Performance. So we have our 2 valves. The other one is just underneath here. We then have our DIY cutout pipes. So I go into depth in my previous video about your different options for installing cutouts on your vehicle. I prefer to do this weld-in style option, which is the DIY cutout. You essentially cut out part of your existing exhaust pipe and then you weld this in line in your exhaust system, essentially branching off from your existing system. The other option is using a Y pipe and exhaust clamps, which is far easier. You don't have to remove the exhaust from the car and you don't have to do any welding. Now, I'm gonna be working on tight space today and I can't use a Y pipe, which is why I'll be using this weld-in method. So we have 2 of those DIY cutouts. We have our turn downs here. I really love these turn downs from QuickTime Performance. They're polished stainless steel. They look really nice and they do their job very well. Essentially, you just bolt this on to the cutout valve and it redirects the exhaust down away from the car as to not melt or damage anything. And lastly, we have this little box here. This is our wireless remote controller. Inside, you'll find the wireless receiver here and 2 remote controls to wirelessly control both exhaust cutouts. I really like this system. It makes the install a lot cleaner. And I highly recommend picking up one of these wireless controllers if you're planning to install some of these cutouts. So first things first, we need to take our DIY cutout pipe here and go underneath the car, the installation area here. I'll be installing these right up by the engine before the catalytic converters, resonator, and mufflers. So we're gonna be straight piping this car today. It's gonna sound absolutely crazy. So essentially, we just wanna find a comfortable position for the DIY cutout pipe to be positioned on the exhaust. So I think I'm gonna put mine in this vicinity here. Looks like we have plenty of room on the side for our valve to mount up, and our flange clears the pipe just barely there. So basically what I'm gonna do is take a Sharpie, mark all the way around the outside the DIY cutout pipe, and then we'll be ready to remove the exhaust from the car. So I dropped down these 2 splash guards to allow myself a little bit more room up here. We're gonna be mounting up the valves. As you can see, I did mark up with my Sharpie where the valves need to go, and I verified that they do in fact fit. Do make sure to have your flanges and a valve on hand when doing this, and make sure that it's gonna fit before we drop the exhaust, cut it, and weld it, because that would really suck if you reinstalled it and it didn't fit. So the removal of this exhaust really doesn't look too terrible. It just looks like a couple of hangers back there, but we do have this cut in the middle of the exhaust here with these very, very corroded clamps, and that would really speed up the process of removing this front section of the exhaust that I need to cut. Only problem is, as you can see, these are very corroded. I'm gonna see if I can break them loose. It's very unlikely, and if I can't, I'll probably either cut them or just remove the entire exhaust system. All right, little update here. I decided it's a lot more work than it's worth to cut those clamps in the middle there and get new ones, and I really don't want to deal with cutting that. So I've dropped the front splash guard and support brace here to give myself a little bit more access to these exhaust flanges up here. So as you can see, we have two exhaust flanges, one on either side, and the design of them, they're really not designed very well, pretty poorly thought out. The bolt is on the back side, and there's three of them. There's one tucked back here, and as you can see, I can only fit like 4 fingers in here. You can't get a wrench back there. I've tried just about everything. I really just don't have the patience to deal with those nuts. So I've marked the flange here. I'm gonna be taking my Sawzall to it, cutting right along the flange, grind down these studs, punch them out, and I'll replace all the hardware and do it properly with the nuts facing this way so that it can actually be easily removed and reinstalled. See how this works out. I'll keep you guys updated. All right, we got the exhaust dropped down here. Just had a couple of 13mm bolts holding on some exhaust hangers. There's 3 of them, one in the center here and 2 on the back holding up the mufflers. So I got it dropped down. I'm gonna get the exhaust out of here, and I do want to deal with these exhaust flanges here. I'm gonna have to grind off backs of those studs there and then punch out the bolts and get some new hardware at the hardware store. All right, so I started working at maybe 11 o'clock. It's now 7:45, sun is going down. I have had a hell of a day getting this exhaust out, and these 2 exhaust flanges, which I did end up saving and getting out, and we'll be reusing them. But guys, oh my gosh. Getting those flanges off of the existing exhaust here was such a nightmare. You have no idea. I spent pretty much all day getting those off. Extremely tight space, very difficult to work on. I'm not sure why they positioned the studs going in this direction towards the engine. It's poorly designed in my opinion, because you wouldn't access the exhaust from the engine bay. You obviously would access it from underneath. Not sure why it's made like that, but I'll be changing that with new hardware. I did forget to film this, and I'm sorry I didn't, but I have both holes cut out on either side for our DIY cutout pipe. Just gonna sit on the exhaust just like this. Gonna get that welded on there tomorrow. But first, I do want to get the exhaust up on jack stands underneath the car, get it bolted back on, get some new hardware for these flanges, get those bolted on as well. And I do want to tack that, because although I did mark these flanges with some Sharpie and some corresponding marks on the pipe, I really don't want to risk misaligning this and then going to install the exhaust and these holes don't line up with the exhaust flanges on the car. So I am gonna have to install and uninstall the exhaust a second time, which is kind of an inconvenience, but you got to take the proper steps to get things done the right way. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, about 8:30 now. Time to pack it in and go get some dinner. The exhaust is in place, up on the jack stands, raised all the way up. So the plan tomorrow is to take these puppies to the hardware store, get the proper hardware for them, bolt them up onto the flanges on the car, lower the car down, bolt on the exhaust, and then I'll tack up these flanges to the pipes so that the alignment is perfectly set up and we don't have any issues reinstalling the exhaust down the line. And I'll also tack up our exhaust cutouts because it is a pretty tight space in here. That's why I have these plastic panels dropped down just to make some more room. We are gonna have to trim them down around the cutout. So tomorrow we'll get everything situated, tacked up, and hopefully completed by the end of the day. This was definitely an ambitious project, especially putting the cutouts so far up there in such a tight space, but I think we're gonna get it done. So time to go shower up, get all these metal shards off me. Not too healthy. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, day 2, boys. We're back here in the garage. Time to get grinding on the Audi here. I'm gonna run down to the hardware store, bring my 2 flanges here, and bringing both of them will allow me to put them back to back like so. I can get the proper length and the proper diameter of hardware to replace the studs that I grinded down. So I'm gonna head down to the hardware store. See you guys there. 18 bucks. Got some new stainless hardware for the flanges here. Gonna fit real nice, I think. So let's get back to the house and start working. Back to the house, as I said, I'm gonna bolt up the flanges with our new stainless hardware, get the exhaust bolted up on the hangers, and I'm gonna tack this together to ensure that our fitment is a-okay. Ah, that was hot. All right, got the flanges tacked up. Let's tack up these cutouts now. All right, a little update here under the car. I got the flanges welded back on both sides. And I also tacked up both the cutouts, got them positioned, and I did test fit my valves on here before tacking them up, just to make sure they fit, because it is gonna be a very close fit with this wall here and this wall over here. But yeah, we're all tacked up and ready to go. So time to drop the exhaust again and get this fully welded up. All right, let's go, boys. We got the exhaust out of the car. The flanges are looking really good. Try to show you in the light here. I got the seam to line up really well. Welding that back up won't be a problem. And as you can see, just tacking it up here, I got really good penetration through the metal. I'm gonna try to get some clean welds going on this, and we're gonna get the cutouts here welded up as well. As you can see, they are staggered, but that won't make much of a difference at all. So just gonna weld all the way around the cutouts, weld up those flanges, and we'll be all set to reinstall this in the car, and then we'll figure out our wiring solution for the electric cutout. All right, so everything is now welded up. We have the cutouts welded in here, looking pretty good. We have our flanges welded back on. Now I'm gonna mask off the area and hit it with some high heat exhaust paint just to prevent any corrosion on those welds there. All right, so while this paint on the exhaust is drying, I'm gonna try to figure out some sort of a wiring route to get our wiring into the car here. I don't know. I actually don't know where I'm gonna tap in. I'll probably tap into a cigarette lighter or something. But ideally, I'd like to bring the wires up through the floor, have them meet in the middle, somewhere around, I don't know, maybe the center console here, and have the wireless controller mounted up in there, away from the elements. So I wanted to bring the wire up through the floorboards, under the driver's seat in that area there, but it was way more work than it was worth to pull up the carpet. So I'll be wiring the wireless controller into the 12-volt outlet in the trunk here. Currently feeding wires under the car. I have my passenger side wire fed all the way up there to the cutout location. I'm currently doing the same on the driver's side here using a cable snake. I'm just feeding that through and then pulling the wire back through up to the front of the car. And I plan to run the wires through one of these rubber grommets here into the trunk to tap into that 12-volt outlet. So obviously this channel is built on BMWs. I'm a noob to Audis. I did not know the Audi battery was in the trunk here, so that's gonna make life a lot easier. We can actually just tap into the battery directly here. I do need to remove, I think that's probably a 13. Remove that 13mm and pull up the battery to access those grommets underneath. So I pulled up the battery. There are not any grommets under it, but I was successful in finding a pass-through. I pulled off the little tailgate trim here, and I found this pass-through right here. Try to show it to you underneath the car. There it is. As you can see, there's a nice big rubber grommet there. I'm gonna use my cable snake once again, stick it through there, tape up my wires to it, and hopefully pull them right through. All right, so this wiring actually worked out really nicely. The wires came through this grommet perfectly, no problem at all. I mounted up the QTP wireless controller right here with some double-sided adhesive, wired it into the positive and negative battery terminals here, just using a simple little crimp connector. And lastly, I zip tied up the excess wire just to neaten this up. And it's looking pretty good. So I'm gonna reinstall the tailgate trim here, get the spare tire reinstalled, all the rest of the stuff in the trunk, and then we can finally get the exhaust mounted up on the car. All right, so I have the exhaust reinstalled in the car here. We have our two DIY cutouts welded in, and I am gonna have to trim the walls of these plastic guards right here just a bit because they do protrude away from the frame and they take up space that is needed for the cutout valves. So I'm just gonna use my little air die grinder and that carbide burr to make a little hole, feed the wires through on either side, and we'll enlarge the hole as necessary once we get the valves in here. All right guys, we're almost there. I have the exhaust reinstalled on the car. As I said, I have everything buttoned up. I have the engine brace reinstalled, splash guard, the two side splash guards reinstalled, all the wiring zip tied. Now all we have to do is install our valves, hook them up to the wires, and that's it. So the installation of our valve here is pretty straightforward. We're gonna take the included gasket, that will go on first, then the valve, and then finally the adjustable turn down. And we'll just slide this whole assembly right on over the DIY cutout. Make sure the bolts are fully inserted. Grab your 14mm nuts, and these are serrated flange nuts, so that makes tightening things down a lot easier, especially in these tight spaces. All right, so get all those finger tight, and now before you tighten them down with whatever tool you're using, angle your turn down in your preferred position, preferably away from any plastic parts or anything it can melt and damage. So I'm just gonna point this pretty much down at the ground, a little bit outwards, just like that, and we can now tighten it down. All right, this bad boy's in here. Now all that's left to do is plug in our watertight connection here and screw it together to lock it. Screw it together to lock it, and I'm just gonna tuck this right in here, and we're all set. Quickly do the same thing over on the passenger side here. All right, let's grab the remote and see if this works. All right, here we go. Oh yeah, that's sweet. Looks pretty sick that they're reversed. Check it out. All right guys, let's get this thing down on the ground and see what it sounds like. All right guys, came down to the local high school here. This thing is way too loud to be ripping at the house. It's louder than my BMW. It's insane. So I'm gonna start it up stock, give it some revs here. You'll see what it sounds like stock. Then I'll open it up and you guys are gonna be amazed. Hopefully that gives you a quick idea of what this sounds like. It's an absolute riot. It sounds amazing. I'm actually really impressed. It sounds very good for cutouts. It even sounds dope idling right now. Listen to it. Oh, I love it. I love it. This is actually a blast to drive. I've only driven it for like 2 minutes now, but this thing is now an absolute toy. It sounds like a beast, and wow. Jared's gonna be excited. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video of essentially straight piping this Audi Q5. Obviously we do still have the primary cats up front, but they really aren't doing much, as you can hear. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry I had to move there, but again, if you're considering installing cutouts on your car, or even if you're just curious about them, be sure to check out the links below to QuickTime Performance. They have the best electric exhaust valve and cutout products on the market, far superior to any other product out there. I've used them all, and these are hands down the best cutouts you can buy. Yes, they're a bit pricey, but I'm telling you, they're well worth it. They're gonna last 10 times longer than anything out there. They have waterproof seals. The motor is much more substantial, and they're of the highest quality compared to those Chinese cutouts where the quality just isn't there. If you guys enjoyed this video, go smash that like button. Please subscribe for more content, and I'll see you guys next time on JD Cars.